I've always felt that there's been a massive disconnect in the Malay Muslim community between those who are educated and doing well in life and those who aren't. And I feel that it's largely due to a lack of involvement with the community.
Most people think that volunteering is a huge commitment, but it doesn't have to be.
I find it's easy for people to say that they don't have time or they don't think that they have what it takes to be a volunteer.
I believe in the strengths, lived experiences, and uniqueness that each individual brings to the community.
Mendaki is open to work with professionals to find the best way we can contribute by tapping on our expertise.
For Mendaki, I conduct sharing sessions with students and youths to guide their educational and career paths.
We engage and mentor these youths to help them understand what they're good at, and using that to enable their future so they can see the greatness that truly lies ahead of them.
Our youths are the ones who build our future as the leaders of tomorrow. When we empower them to be the best that they can be sure that we are building a better tomorrow.
Volunteering is an endless road of self-improvement. And not only does it make you a better person, it also uplifts those around you as well.
A very good morning to everyone and welcome to eMpower 2021's final installment, Part 4, Career Starter Pack. Thank you for joining us this morning. Before we begin, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Hakim and I'll be your moderator for this morning. This year, eMpower takes the form of a 4-part series which aims to ensure that fresh graduates and graduating students are well equipped holistically. Back for its second year, eMpower is jointly organized by NUS Muslim Society and NUS Malay Language Society in collaboration with our partners from Mendaki Future Ready. Focusing on career challenges, financial literacy, and career networking, we hope that participants will be introduced to a spectrum of topics that will guide us through entering or navigating adulthood, inshallah. Allow me to recap a little on some of the takeaways from our previous sessions. Especially in our first session of eMpower, our speakers touched on the struggles of post-graduation life and transitioning to the working world. Some of the interesting points raised includes contract jobs and traineeship programs are the new normal, the importance of looking out for a mentor or a resourceful friend who may offer assistance in the early part of your career, which can be done through networking opportunities, and finally, on top of developing hard skills, developing good relationship with others in the field will help you too. Career Starter Pack provides you with insights to better understand and keep up with the changing demands of the workforce as seen during the COVID-19 pandemic. With the rise in uncertainties among us undergraduates as a result, we aim to alleviate them by having seasoned professionals in the workforce to provide general overview and advice of the workforce as a whole. This prepares us to be well equipped and informed of the necessary tools that are deemed essential to kickstart a desirable career journey in the long run. The first segment will be a panel discussion, which will take you on a journey with our panelists through their experiences and key takeaways as seasoned professionals in the workforce. Additionally, a live Q&A segment will be available where we will address concerns by attendees through the Slido link put up earlier and from the floor as well. Next, we have a Future Of series where you can find out more about the industries you are interested in from our alumni and how you can equip yourselves with the relevant knowledge to guide you through your career. We will be having our alumni joining us from Public Services, CNM, Business and Finance, Social Services, and Technology. So let us begin with our first segment, which is the panel discussion. So in this segment, we will discuss issues related to the working world, and today we have 3 esteemed speakers with us who are here to share their valuable experiences building their careers. It is now a great pleasure for me to introduce to you our speakers for today, Ms. Farida Saad, Mr. Johann Johari, as well as Ms. Hasina Sham. So firstly, Ms. Hasina Sham is the Executive Director of Pillar Training and Development and has served in the field of communications and psychology for more than 15 years. She's experienced in coaching, facilitation, and consulting, and has worked with multicultural audiences. With a postgraduate diploma in HR and organizational psychology, she earned a master's degree in mass communication, as well as a degree in communication media management. Ms. Farida Saad is currently a Deputy Director of Agritech, an enterprise that spearheads Singapore as a leading urban agriculture and aquaculture technologies hub, contributing to food security, economic growth, and good jobs for Singaporeans. She is also currently serving as the 10th President of Mendaki Club, supporting the career aspirations of Malay Muslim youths and young professionals while availing them with opportunities to give back to the community. And finally, we have Mr. Johann Johari, who is the Assistant Director of Mendaki Future Ready and has served in Yayasan Mendaki for 13 years. Mendaki Future Ready is a program dedicated to supporting youths and young professionals in preparing them for their working world and creating network opportunities to engage with industry leaders and gain insights. Throughout the session, do feel free to ask any questions pertaining to the topic via our Slido link, which is shown on your screens. And without further ado, let us begin with our panel discussion. All right. So our panel discussion today focuses on the idea of Career Starter Pack to aim to provide undergraduates with insights to better understand and keep up with the changing demands of the workforce amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. In this unsettling time, we believe that it is necessary for undergraduates to understand and be informed and equip themselves with the necessary tools and skills that are essential to kickstart a desirable career journey in the long run. Our undergraduates, I'm sure, would like to know our three speakers here even more for today. So may I invite our three speakers to share a little bit more about themselves and maybe the stories behind their careers and how they achieved to where they are now. So can we start with Ms. Farida Saad? Would you be able to share a bit more about yourself?
Sure. Can you hear me? Hi, Assalamualaikum, everyone here and those actually tuning in live. I'm Farida. So a little bit about myself, graduate of NUS FASS class of 2012. I did political science, so big shout out to all juniors and alumni out there. Actually, it's a quite funny story about how I ended up in university. I was actually a Polytechnic graduate and I did mass communications in Polytechnic. And the reason why I did mass communications in Polytechnic was because I actually wanted to be a radio DJ. Until I got to Polytechnic, and then I realized that DJs don't just spend the entire day playing music. They actually have to do a bunch of other things. So I actually decided, okay, that's not really the job I want to do. That doesn't sound fun at all. I turned my attention to journalism, and I was privileged enough to do an internship with Singapore Press Holdings and was mentored by quite a number of really influential correspondents and legacies, one of which was Bertha Hansen. And I asked her, okay, so I want to be a journalist, you know, what should I do? And she said, well, the first thing you need to do is go get yourself a degree. And I asked her, what should I study? And she said, look around, what do most journalists study? Obviously, it's going to be political science or international relations. So I listened to her and I enrolled into NUS. And just as your generation right now is known as the cohort or the generation that is defined by the COVID pandemic, my generation was the global financial crisis. So right around my first year, the consequences of what was happening to the US financial system was starting to hit Singapore, and we were entering one of our deepest recessions during that time. And what went through my mind was, well, firstly, are my parents going to get retrenched? And if so, how was I going to finish university? And the second was, even if I managed to get through university, would there be jobs out there? I did what I thought was the most practical thing at the time, which was I'm going to get myself a scholarship, because it was about ensuring financial security, and it was also about ensuring a job when I graduated. And on offer at that time, literally sort of the applications open, was a local scholarship that was offered by an agency called International Enterprise Singapore. And I thought, this looks cool. Their logo is teal, which is one of my favorite colors. So, you know, I can't go wrong with that. And I put my heart and soul into the application process and did all of that. And alhamdulillah, I managed to get that scholarship and finish my studies. And at least at that time, I thought my next 4 years was set, right? What was surprising was then that I didn't go around looking for my passion. My passion sort of found me. And with that agency, and I've been with them now, this is coming to my 10th year, I've been able to do almost 4 rotations, which took me from doing infrastructure financing to being posted to one of the most beautiful countries in the world, which is Johannesburg, South Africa, where I did a lot of trade promotion and trade investment and supporting Singapore companies to internationalize. I came back, I joined Ministry of Trade and Industry on a secondment, and I got to negotiate FTAs and more recently concluded the world's largest FTA, which is the RCEP. And then now I'm really in a role that I love. I am Deputy Director for Agri-Tech, as mentioned by Hakim. And I lead, a team of millennials and Gen Zs that come in vibrant and dynamic every day to work. And they tell me how they want to change the world and help us become a more secure country in terms of food security. And really, I think all of that is just because of certain practical decisions that I made in university, which is really where most of you guys are at now. So that's sort of a little bit about myself. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Farida. Maybe next we can go to Mr. Johan. Maybe you can introduce a bit more about yourself and what you do.
Okay, sure. So hi everyone, my name is Johan. I was hoping for Hakim not to mention that I've been in Mendaki for 13 years because it then reveals that I'm a little bit older than Farida. Okay, maybe not a little bit, but a lot older than Farida. Yes, I've been with Mendaki for 13 years. Prior to Mendaki, I was actually from a different sector altogether. I was in the banking and finance sector for a few years, and then I moved over to Mendaki. So I graduated with a degree in political science and economics, and just a few years ago, I completed my master's in non-profit management. So education aside, a lot of the work I do really focuses on you guys, looking at how we can work together to better understand the future and be better prepared for the future. And there's no better time because right now, it really is the age of, a lot of people will say it's the age of disruption and challenge, but it really is the age of opportunity, that there are new roads and pathways for you to create and forge on your own. So always look at it that way. What I've been doing in Mendaki, when I first joined Mendaki, I was doing research and policy, focusing on youth and employability, and then subsequently I moved on to working in programs for youth and families, and in the last few years I headed the Future Ready department, and we've actually grown quite a fair bit. So we started off looking at or taking care of IT students, looking at how we can support them in their future readiness. And then we went on to engage tertiary level students and young professionals. And really the whole idea, again, like I mentioned earlier, is really to see how we can best prepare. But beyond the soft skills and the technical skills, what's very critical is also your social capital. I mean, the technical skills are really your human capital, the skill sets that you have. But the social capital is essentially what can shape you or open the opportunities for you. And that's something which I think many people tend to shy away from, because when we talk about networking, we all like, oh, maybe some other time. But it's really critical. And you'll find out as you progress in your education and you progress in your careers that knowing more people or knowing the relevant networks is very, very critical for you. And same to like what Farida mentioned, when I graduated from university, it was a period of SARS. And SARS, as you all know, is the predecessor of COVID. So the economy wasn't doing too fantastic. I think there were a lot of concerns of those who were already working. Will I have a job? And when I graduated, I was thinking to myself also, will I have a job? Should I continue studying and ride this wave out? I think this will be similar to some of your concerns here as well. And I think this discussion, we can take it later, but in a gist, that's my brief history. Yeah, and I look forward to chatting with everyone again soon.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Johan. Maybe finally we can introduce yourself, Miss Hasina.
Right. Thank you for having me. Assalamualaikum to everybody.
Waalaikumsalam.
It's a pleasure to be here. I mean, listening to Farida and Joe talking about surviving the financial crisis and also the SARS. I mean, I survived a lot of the other things, the recession. So I'm a lot much older than, so I've survived a whole series of those crises that we had, many years in perhaps starting from the 80s onwards. So I think just like what Joe mentioned and Farida mentioned, the crisis is truly an opportunity. That's where I started when many years ago. The path that I started was so much different because I'm in a generation I'm in a generation where we have to chart our own cause. We don't have the initiatives that you are all privileged to have in this generation, which I think it's a opportunity by itself that you get to tap on all those initiatives. In my time, in the 80s, late 70s, we have to chart our own cause, and the only skills that we had that would champion, the work or the journey that we want to go through is our own initiative, not the initiative that that is already put on the plate for most of you. So I think, like what Joe mentioned, it's really a time of, exciting times when such initiative, though you have to go through a journey, but a journey that you will not walk alone because you do have partners that would help you around this journey. So for me, it was a different story altogether. I have parents who were civil servant, who were, middle-income family people. Both my parents were civil servants. So my sister and myself had to really work hard to make sure that we get the right skills and education. So thank God, alhamdulillah, my mom and my dad worked so hard to raise us to make sure that we get our education right. So the minute I graduated, in fact, I'm someone who loves communication and relationship. So since young, I love anything to do with presentation, communication. I write poetries. So I thought the only best thing to go to in education is to take something that's related to communication. So just like Farida, I'm into media mass communication as well. But I never had. Unlike you, Farida, you like to be a DJ, but I don't want to be a DJ. I'm someone who is so private that I feel that, why do I want to go into communication when I'm actually quite an introvert? I know some of you won't believe that, but I'm quite an introvert, so I thought, but I would like to take up communication just to make engagement with people, just to relate to people. Because coming from a middle-income family, my parents go through a lot of challenges. And I think what help us to wade through those challenges are the ability to communicate openly. So that intrigued me into learning about, connecting with people. So when I took communication, I never thought that one of the things that I will, get myself involved is doing consulting work. So I worked in a small consulting firm for some time, and I do a lot of research work, a lot of, presenting work to CEOs and VPs of the companies, find new innovation in terms of what new technologies and education that industries are looking at. So we look for cutting-edge information. So that's how I started my journey. And from a consultant, I went into corporate training, and that's where I am today. But if we were to go further in the conversation later, I would like to share that it wasn't a walk in the park, it was a lot of hard work. So that's part of something that I have gone through. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Hasina. All right, so maybe let's go on to the questions right now. So maybe let me just ask the three speakers. Maybe in general, we start warming up first, right? Yes. All right. Okay, so maybe I can just ask, we know that this period of time where COVID-19 is ravaging the world and a lot of businesses are closing down, and a lot of undergraduates have this concern of not being able to find a job, especially for the 2020 generation and also the 2021 graduates that's going to come soon. How then would you advise, or how then would you tell them how should they view the job market, or how should they view themselves going into the job market? Yeah, maybe anybody can answer.
You know, go ahead, Liz. I think here it's natural to feel a bit of pessimism, not knowing what the future holds. But I think there's a lot of reason for optimism as well. I think that's where I'll start with. The previous financial crisis and recessions that we went through when we graduated, we didn't have the kind of abundance in opportunity and support that the current students have. So, for example, the traineeship programs, that gives you, one foot in the door of getting valuable work experience when the job market may be gloomy. So that's how I would look at it if I were graduating this year. To really look at the opportunities that are available, whether it's through national schemes or community schemes or otherwise, because there are plenty of opportunities. Yes, we may be talking about job losses and all that, but if we really look at the right places, there are plenty of opportunities. It's a matter of knowing where these opportunities lie and seizing these opportunities. So, I mean, if there are traineeships that are available for you, take it up. If there are internships, for those who are still applicable for internships, do them right also. And while you're doing all this, build your networks, because again, you never know when you can leverage on these networks for future opportunities. I think I'll just capture that for now, then maybe we'll see how the other speakers can chip in.
Yeah, and I think that is a good segue to maybe the next question that I have. Maybe for Ms. Farida, knowing your work in the Enterprise Singapore and also in setting up the reciprocal green lanes, right, previously, what do you see in the requirements of Singapore, especially in terms of the workforce?
I think that what's interesting is in 2015 there was a World Economic Forum report that talked about the top 10, top 20 types of skills that all employees globally are looking at. So these include things like emotional intelligence, negotiation, I think it was collaboration, etc. In 2020, despite so much that has happened, most of those traits pre-COVID are also the same types of traits that employers are looking at. So whether it's private sector or public sector, the fundamental types of soft skills, are actually really what all employers are looking at. And I think it's not just having a cert that says LinkedIn emotional intelligence or critical thinking or otherwise. Employers are looking at application of these traits. And again, sort of just to go back to Joe's point, you guys are a generation that really have an abundance of resources. The government has done quite a bit, but I really want to thank, also our nonprofits and our self-help organizations that have also stepped up to give you opportunities from not just the traineeships themselves, but skills workshops. All of these, most of them are FOC. So it's really then you guys taking ownership of how do you better prepare yourselves to then imbue some of these skills that employers would then be looking at.
All right.
If I can just quickly chip in.
Yeah, sure,
on
no
that.
problem.
I mean, just like what Farida mentioned, it's not just what the government offers, but what self-help groups also offer. So Mendaki Club and Mendaki Futurity, there are plenty of opportunities, whether it's workshops to build, for example, your personal brand, because that's how you stand out with amongst your peers. But also in terms of the kind of skills that you can acquire and building networks. So I think these are some of the things which are really within reach and you just need to explore. Mendaki Club and Mendaki, yeah.
Maybe there's a good point you say about developing oneself. So maybe I want to throw this question to Ms. Hasina. Knowing your work in working with corporates, what kind of skills are they looking for actually, especially nowadays?
I think, like what Farida mentioned, the core skills or the soft skills are always there in terms of how in the corporate world we're looking at your leadership skill, your skill to collaborate, whether you're a team player, your relationship building skills, your emotional intelligence. I think all this boil down into your ability to articulate yourself, more confidently at work. Because you may have the, you may have the papers, you may have the experiences, but if you cannot articulate what exactly would distinct you from the rest of the other people at workplace, you will just be there, not creating value. So I think at workplace, the skills that people are looking at are skills that would help you to, to be visible at working place, because it's all about your visibility, how you're connecting with people, what kind of projects are you involving, what kind of work do you like to volunteer, especially in this crisis where people are so comfortable with the skill sets. In the past, people are comfortable with the skill set that they have and the competencies that they have already achieved. I think the crisis is an opportunity where we all can start to, develop ourselves and reskill some of the skills that we now think it's important in the markets, or deepen our skills for some of the skills that we already have. So at workplace, I think majority of the skills that would, will help you to thrive at workplace are your communication skills, your team player skills, and also your leadership. So I want to touch a little bit about leadership, because a lot of people think when you go to a workplace, if I'm not a manager, then I don't have to worry about my leadership skills. Now, I think that is something that a lot of us have forgotten, that each and every one of us are leaders in our own right. So how do we carry ourselves as leaders in our own right? There's certain skills that we have to develop, because it doesn't mean that you are not a manager, you don't have to exude that skill, because leadership is all about collaboration and relationship building. So I think that's something that you can thrive a lot more with such skills in a corporate world.
Maybe
sure,
just to add, and I'm glad that I think there's sort of consensus that soft skills are important and that they are a constant. But I also want to make a plug for hard skills. One thing that has changed, maybe since 2015, 2020, is the fact that digital skills are now no longer just a premium, they are a prerequisite for most jobs. And I mean one level up from, Microsoft Office work proficiency and Excel and all of that. But I think, speaking as someone who is in a position to hire, someone that comes in, equal things, everything, qualifications, otherwise, someone that has shown propensity to do data analytics, someone that has an understanding of applications that can enable RPA, even though there may not be, even though
and also, adding to that, I think that's exactly true, because I think we are living in what I would call the intelligence revolution right now, that everything is about AI, robotics, and data analysis. And I think, like what Farida mentioned, and even for us in the corporate world, being able to be, people who data literacy, someone who can read data, not only read them, but interpret them, and then make good use of that data. From the HR point of view, we are all using a lot of those data analytics and telling stories from the numbers that we are seeing. So any one of you who are picking up, in this crisis where you can pick up new skills, the hard skills like what Farida mentioned, is something that you can, focus on, because surprisingly in today's digital world, what will stand out in the employer's eyes is really someone who are a bit technically savvy in terms of how they can run, because you can see there's a lot of restructuring that's happening in organization, especially during the COVID or post-COVID. There are going to be a lot of restructuring, business model changing in the workplace, and a lot of this changing are very much related to digital and technology work. So it has accelerated to a level where it became something like, it's a necessary necessary, skills at workplace. So it's good to have the opportunity to learn.
And I understand that definitely there is, because of COVID-19 and everything like that, there is definitely a transition or a change or an increase in trend in developing your digital skills, your technological skills, your IT skills. But what would you say to someone with a degree in, for example, in the arts, where they can't really apply, for example, digital skills? Maybe I'm wrong, I'm not so sure. Yeah, Ms. Farida, you're giving an expression.
You must have seen my puzzled look. So I think that we have to change that mindset, right? Big flash of news, guys, undergraduates say, you're from FASS or whatnot. Most likely, you're not going to be a psychologist, a political scientist, a geographer, a Malay studies historian, etc. So whatever role that you end up with, your degree that you are pursuing will enable you to have some hard skills, some soft skills, but it is simply just teaching you these skills that would better prepare you. But when it comes to the workplace, it's really going to be role specific. And some of you, you could be a history undergraduate, but say, you join Grab or LinkedIn or otherwise, and you want to you're in the government and policy affairs department. Maybe digital marketing is something that you need to take as a prerequisite of doing your job well. Are you going to say to your employer, but I studied history? Or I'm an art student. That doesn't quite mean anything, actually, in the workplace. And similarly, I've also seen arts undergraduates really excel at even the technical type of work, simply because their understanding of nuancing on data and interpretation skills is really, quite high up there, given their background. So I would like to encourage, regardless of your background, regardless of your age and your, what you think is possible for you to pick up as a student, go for it, right? We're not expecting you to become coders overnight. And again, technical skills is quite broad, right? Like was mentioned, I think application or even understanding what exactly is blockchain and its applications, what exactly is AI and sort of some of the other 4R technologies, that's already a good step, I think.
Any?
I also feel that answering your question about the people maybe from the arts or from the counseling or from social work, they probably think that this is not a hard skill that's relevant to me. I think they'll be surprised because, like I said, the digital work has accelerated to an unprecedented level these days. Even we, at those times, rarely do we see retail people getting involved so much in, e-commerce. Now, in fact, every retail are now e-commerce, and if they are not online, they are not, they're missing a whole huge of opportunity. So I think whether you're from arts or whether you're from, any work that is not, you think such hard skills is not related, I think you would probably want to think again, because even in the art scenes now, you can see a lot of digital work is happening at the backdrop. So you can see people in the arts, people who have the technical ability to create, wonderful scenes at the background, requires a lot of technical, competencies. And I think this is something that we want to really sit and think about. How are we going to embrace digital going forward? Because everything, I don't think digital technology is specific, it's industry specific. I think digital technology is going to be, industry revolution where every industries will be involved in a digital transformation. Be the arts, the social sciences, the counseling, everything will go through a digital transformation.
Yeah, so if I could just chip into that. I mean, prior to COVID, the talk of the town has always been whether machines or automation will take over our jobs. AI coming in, and then we've seen how now news articles are written by computers, songs are written by computers, and all that. And so there's always a question of whether I will still have a job. But if we track back, the fear of machines isn't just specific to our generation or our time. It's been around for the longest time. If you just track back, maybe perhaps 50, 80 years ago, there were many concerns on how factories or machines, those rudimentary machines, are going to take over the jobs of factory workers. So there was a lot of concern on this. But ultimately, there will always still be jobs. One thing that we need to be clear is, yes, technology improves as we go along, but technology will not take over your job per se. Technology actually takes over certain tasks, perhaps some of the more routine tasks, which leaves us to look at higher level work, higher order work. And yes, technology will influence the way we work, technology will enable our work, but we must also be aware that there are many jobs out there that still require that human touch. So for example, education. I don't think in the near future robots will completely take over teaching the classroom. So beyond education, there are so many other things: counseling, those in the social services, in the medical line itself. So I think, ultimately, we must see how we can harness this technology to make us perform our work better.
All right. Thank you so much. That was very insightful, definitely. And especially when we're talking about building up skills, talking about soft skills and hard skills, and especially since it's COVID-19, right? So undergraduates are looking for jobs that are COVID-19 resistant. Do you think that is a good goal to strive for, or should they continue to develop further to be resistant throughout their entire lives for the pandemic or the problems that may arise in the next few decades, maybe?
Well, I think that's interesting because, COVID is really a learning opportunity for a lot of organizations where we are forced to restructure for many things. I think it gives us also as employees to really reflect on what are some of the things going forward in terms of the future work that will be good for us to look into. But as I think when you mentioned about whether they should look for a job that is COVID resistant or we are going to. I think COVID is not the only crisis we're going to be faced with. We learn from so many crises that we have gone through. The crises are going to come. So, so I think what will be good for us is to pick up skills that we know that is future ready. But so when you talk about future ready, you also want to learn about what are the booming industries that help this. These skills to be applied more efficiently. So at this time, I think for graduates, more applicable for the graduates is to look at EDB and ESG, where the government are investing on enterprises, on industries. So we talk about advanced manufacturing, biochemical, we talk about pharmaceutical, we'll talk about, the cybersecurity. So these are the industries that perhaps the investments are being put in place by ESG and also EDB. So you want to look at those industries. But nonetheless, having said that, we also have to develop this adaptability and resilient mindset, because though these industries are the upcoming booming industries, anything can change. So I mean, to be fixated to a certain sort of mindset or a sort of work that you want to chase after can come and bite you later, because we are going to be faced with this crisis. It may not be COVID, it may be anything else. So I think more importantly, to answer your question, is really the ability to adapt and to have a resilient mindset and to look into what I have to do now and what I have now, how it can help me in the future. Will something be helpful, will help them a bit more.
No, I 100% agree. And actually what's interesting was last year Mendaki Club did a webinar series, and one of the sessions was about how to COVID-proof your career, and it was the 3 parts, which is COVID-proof careers, COVID-proof skills, and then what kind of resources and the call to action. I think we spoke quite a little bit about the skills, and those will remain pandemic or otherwise. COVID-proof jobs is really, I think, looking and doing that due diligence in terms of industries that are booming because of COVID and industries that are booming post-COVID. And industries that are booming because of COVID, I think healthcare is a real no-brainer, right? There are a couple of thousand jobs that are being created within the healthcare sector specific, but which may not require, sort of healthcare qualifications, meaning you did not need to have been a doctor or be pursuing these health sciences, but really around community healthcare and the like. So that's one aspect. And then in terms of COVID-proof, I'd say industries that will take off post-COVID, I think we've mentioned those, right? The 4IR type of technologies are here to stay. What kind of industries are being boomed out of that? Manufacturing, we call them frontier manufacturing now. It's no longer just called advanced manufacturing. That's almost passé. So what is frontier manufacturing? Things like how do you combine, specialty chemicals with manufacturing techniques? Things like that, right? How do you now manufacture food? Alternative proteins, for example. We're making a very big play in Singapore to say that as part of our food security, it's about manufacturing future foods that are healthy and safe and hopefully more nutritious. So I think, having an understanding of the kind of industries that are actually set to take off because and after COVID, and it doesn't take, a lot. It simply takes due diligence, meaning reading more, reading newspapers. Our ministers and different agencies are always mentioning the kind of jobs that they are creating, and these are actual jobs. We know because I'm a public servant, right? I'm the one actually counting how many jobs that we're creating, and these are pledges by companies to hire. The question is, are you clued in into where the industries are? I want to share 2 resources that I would encourage the undergraduates to have a look at, especially those that are graduating. Number 1 is actually LinkedIn labor market statistics. They actually let you know which are the top employers that are hiring and for what types of jobs, as well as which industries are set to actually take off during this period. The second one is actually Wantedly. So it is a social media-driven employee platform. So again, they actually run a 24-hour dynamic real-time platform that tells you what jobs are available and from which companies. So again, these are just resources that are out there. Again, they are FOC. It's up to you to take ownership of your career pathway and actually access them.
All right, thank you.
So I'll just chip in a little bit. I mean, probably about 1.5 years ago, we never knew the term COVID-proof, but the more popular term was future-proofing your careers. Everybody wanted to know, how can I future-proof my career and prolong and excel in my career? Ultimately, it really boils down to acquiring the necessary skill sets. But beyond that, and like what Hasina mentioned, it's really about resilience. And I think we all know what resilience is. It's really the ability to bounce back from shocks or setbacks. And that's key because, as you can see from the 3 of us, we've gone through quite a few setbacks, whether it's at the start of our careers, in the middle of our careers, and there's always that need to tell yourself that, okay, I'm going to stay this course, or I'm going to look at different options, but whatever it is, I will not just let this overcome me. So that whole idea of being resilient is very, very important. And beyond that also, when you talk about COVID-proofing or future-proofing, there always needs to be an understanding of what's happening in your sector in the future. Take for example, I mean, for us at Future Ready, we have carried out quite a few of the Future Of series where we engage students to talk about the future of their industries. One of which, for example, we did a Future Of Retail, and we know how retail has evolved. From brick and mortar to now a lot of it is online, and many of us prefer that online mode primarily because it's so convenient. And then within a few hours you get whatever it is that you're ordering, and so having that understanding of future developments or current developments allows you to prepare ahead and acquire whatever skill sets that you need in order for you to be ahead of your peers and to adapt to that. So it really is about understanding the ecosystem, and like what Farida mentioned also, if let's say you go into the healthcare sector, it's not just about doctors and nurses. There's so many other jobs in that ecosystem within the industry itself that you can look at and you can definitely work towards. Ultimately, also, I think one of the key things here in COVID-proofing your careers is really about lifelong learning. And lifelong learning is key because it allows you to adapt, it allows you to acquire the skills that you need in future, should there be any other changes or developments. So lifelong learning is really key. And lifelong learning isn't exactly just about going and sitting for your master's or getting another degree. There's that massive open online courses, MOOC. Many of those are free and it's self-paced, informal learning. As and when you are available, as and when you are free, you can acquire those. And I think as for me, when I looked at LinkedIn accounts, more and more people are including whatever that they acquire through MOOC. Because those are, again, like what many universities are offering at the moment, modular courses. And these things do add up. So look at lifelong learning as something that will definitely future-proof your careers.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just now, maybe I just want to ask a question to Mr. Johan. Just now you brought up about individuals to develop themselves in terms of their skills that they have, and then also about going to traineeships and stuff like that. But for example, let's go into the micro, on the personal level, on the individual level. What if they do not have that many options to begin with for traineeships, for example? Yeah.
What if they don't have that many options? Here, there are options. It's a matter of where you look and how you acquire them. There are definitely options. One way for you to broaden or widen your horizons in terms of understanding or even understanding the options that you have is through, for example, mentorship. If you have a mentor, if you have someone who is a few steps ahead of you, who's already working, or a mid-career person that you know, that person can guide you through the different pathways that are available to you. You may not see it as a student entering the workforce, but someone who's been in the workforce for a few years would be better placed to understand what it takes to enter, what are the different pathways, what are the different options available to you. So definitely don't discount the value of mentoring, the value of guidance, the value of someone or approaching someone for help or advice on what your next step should be. Yeah.
I want to also add into that, I think your mentorship is really great. And also, answering your question about those who may not have the opportunity for traineeship. But of course, like what Joe and Farida and I mentioned today, is that there's always opportunity to tap on. Like I said, you have to develop yourself, but you're not walking alone these days because, a lot of those initiatives are there for you. But having said that, what is traineeship? Traineeship is a place where you actually, to me, it's really a place where you gain experience, you develop skills, So if you don't have that option, don't just wait for that option to come. Working as a part-time, freelancing, getting a job, volunteer, even if you don't get a job, volunteering is also a place where it helps you to develop skills. And those volunteering work, so you may be surprised, but it will look good on your resume as well, because in volunteering, you organize, you promote, you communicate, you collaborate, and these are skills that are, workplace skills that are necessary. So if traineeship is something that you missed out on because of some reason or the other, don't just sit and wait, Go out there and make yourself visible. Find out freelance work, volunteer, a part-time job. These are places that surely will develop your skills. I want to quote a story about Barack Obama. I always thought that was so inspiring. When he started, he was an ice cream scooper, and look, what skills do people may think, what is that job about? But that job has one skill that made him what he is today. It is about communication with customers, building relationship, negotiation about buying and selling, whatnot. But every work has skills that would help you to go a long way. When I started in a boutique company and consulting firm, my bosses have told me, "Oh, we don't have the luxury to take a designer for the EDM. We don't have the luxury to do a marketing for all the courses that we have in hand." So when I started leading a team, I do all the EDMs myself. I had to promote the, training or the courses on my own. So for some people, that's not fair because, that's not part of my job. But I embraced it because I know it helps me to develop skills. Today, I probably can do a great EDM. I wouldn't say maybe my team members would still, ask me for some tips because you already have that eye for detail because you started doing it at a very young age. So I think any skills you pick in regard to whether you're in traineeship, any part-time job, any volunteering work is so essential in developing your experience. And looking good on your resume is another thing.
So would it be right for me to say that undergraduates should just, after graduating, should just go for it?
Oh, yes. I mean, I would encourage anyone who have the opportunity, especially, I would say that some of the things that you see on the papers or on the portals, some of the jobs may be something that you think, I applied 100 times, but I don't get the opportunity.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, most of the things that you see sometimes are, there's a high demand, high competition. And hiring is all about numbers. You see, it's a number game. So if you're going to just sit and wait, you will probably be, a victim of the numbers. So I would say go and network, like what Joe mentioned. That's where the hidden market is. A lot of those jobs are not out on the papers, they're not on the portals. But if you know someone who knows someone who wants somebody, then you are in the right spot to, eliminate all this competition. So I would tell you, don't wait for any traineeship. If you get a job, go out there and shine.
Maybe just to add, don't wait till you're graduating. Some of you are in your first year, second year. Okay, so even for myself, it's so funny. Barack Obama used to scoop ice cream. I used to work at Swenson's and it was awesome, right? And the point is that, as early as you could, get a job, learn those skills, be tankers, right? Yeah, if you have to be the one to stay up, to be the first in, the last out, the lowest paid, maybe even unpaid, just do it, right? Because those build skills and they build something, an additional line in your resume, and every line actually does matter. Start early. I think that networking will help you, and finding mentors will help you guide the internship, traineeship journey. The traineeships are, a specific scheme, but even without those, I think you can still find organizations that are willing to offer internships with certain stipends and the like. Speaking as an employer and again someone in a position to hire, even for us, we have a management associate program, and yes, it is for graduating students. But guess what? The ones that usually make it are our interns. Because they've done that in their year one and their year two, and we know them and we will vouch for them even as they go ahead and apply for the management associates programs. And it's the same with a lot of other organizations. So that's something critical for you guys to think about. Don't wait till you're in your final year.
Yeah. Yep. And I think one thing that undergraduates have, or graduates that just graduated have, is their youth, right? And that is something that they can really apply, and like what Ms. Farida said about hustling and putting in their effort and all, putting it all the way.
That I do not have. Yes, I agree.
So what kind of priorities, for example, these undergraduates, they want to get a job, what kind of priorities should they put on, consider when they are trying to find a job?
I would say actually, hopefully you have an inkling of the kind of sectors that you want to go into, the kind of industries that you want to go into. use that as a reference point and pick certain organizations that you want to then therefore eventually be your future employer, and then start seeking out those internship opportunities. If those are competitive or they are simply not at a position where they have internships available, pick what is closest to it. Those that might have synergies, those that might be adjacent to some of these organizations. Don't go for pay. I do empathize with, I know some undergraduates need to work, part-time as a means of supporting their studies, and I fully understand that and I empathize that, right? But again, the good news is no one gets to travel, so no graduation, no graduation trips and otherwise. Do your math financially and figure out how much do you actually need to work, to save, in order for you to potentially take an internship that is unpaid, but that will then help you in your longer term career. So these are just some trade-offs that you need to think about as you pursue the internships.
So ultimately, I think this again boils down to what we spoke about earlier, that there are many opportunities available for you. If, let's say, there are it's not explicit in terms of the vacancy or the traineeship or whatever, again, go hard in your internships, because that is really one way that you can secure something in the future. And never discount the value of volunteerism. Volunteer. I think Mendaki Club is looking for people to be part of their setup. Mendaki is looking for volunteers to mentor others, because the kind of guidance that you receive would definitely be useful for others who are coming up, the younger students. And we definitely want the students who are coming up to also benefit from the guidance and advice that you have gotten, and also excel as well. So never ever discount the value of volunteerism. Primarily not just because of the doors that help that are open for you, but also the values that you can transmit downwards to the younger generations.
Maybe just to add a plug, right? Both our organizations are actually looking for interns, in the upcoming batch from March onwards. So again, volunteering, fantastic way to give back, but also gain those useful skills and network.
Yeah, and I can vouch for Mendaki, because I've been a volunteer for the past year. Yeah, and it truly has opened a lot of doors and a lot of lessons that I've learned from it.
Maybe you can share one quick example of that.
I guess because last year our mentorship program was with a class. So it was actually, it actually develops your learning, your teaching skills, your interaction skills, especially with students who they don't really know much about the adult world. Yeah. So that is where I feel I've gained a lot from, and which helped in my career currently. Yeah, inshallah.
And I also think the power of volunteer is so powerful, because sometimes we are so caught up in our own world that, I'm not getting a job where the rest of my friends are, I'm not getting the trainership when the rest are. But if you go out and volunteer, you see those people who needs guidance, and you will understand my life isn't bad after all. So that would change your perspective in life. And you probably will see, hey, there's a lot of goodness around me that I should tap on. So volunteer is a wonderful place to begin with.
So when you volunteer, as and when you volunteer, it's always a win-win situation. I think for many people, when they think about, if I volunteer as a mentor, it is the mentee who wins. But actually, that's not true. In any mentoring relationship, both the mentor and the mentee wins. The mentee wins because you get to share your experiences and values, and so the mentee can grow. But as a mentor, again, there's a lot of support given to the mentors, not just in terms of how you mentor your mentee, but for your own personal development. Again, you will be given access to Mendaki and Mendaki Club opportunities, opportunities at the national level, opportunities that you would never have heard of. And again, all these come true when you volunteer.
Thank you so much to our three speakers for sharing so much during this panel discussion. I would like to open the questions to the floor. Maybe if there's any question at all, do just go to the mic and ask your question.
Hello.
Hello, maybe you can state your name and where you're from.
Hi, my name is Suraya. I'm currently a Year 3 Malay Studies undergraduate from NUS. I have like 2 questions, but first of all, I would like to say thank you so much for the sharings. My first question would be like, we know that due to some changing job landscape, right, we have to manage our own expectations when we seek our career opportunities, but so which means that we have to settle for a job that we might not have planned to have. However, how do we manage our expectations without compromising the aspirations that we initially have? And the second question is more of when we try to specialize in something that we want to have in the future. So I think lately there's this thing called like the T specialization, when you have both the breadth and also like really specialize in what you want. So how far do we get the breadth and how far do we actually specialize so that we don't, like treat anything off from one another? Yeah, thank you.
Anybody?
I can take that. Thanks so much, Surya, for your question, and all the best in your studies. So it's 2 parts, right? The first part is how do you manage your expectations, especially if you may think that you are settling for a job or a career path that you didn't initially envision. I'm actually a firm believer in whatever happens to us was meant to happen to us, right? I think that's fundamental in our faith, and that's something we should hold on to, although we sometimes forget when it comes to our careers. So that's number 1. And the second is, I think, by the way, your career is not a sprint, it's a marathon. You will be working from the moment you graduate all the way till the end. I'm not saying don't pursue your passion, right? And I am in awe of people who knew their passion on their career pathways even before they graduated, and even more so want to pursue it, but simply maybe couldn't. They have to put their dream aside. It's okay to put your dreams aside. The point is then to always come back to it at a time in which maybe you're a lot more financially able, that you've got a couple more years under your belt and you're a lot more settled to maybe take a gamble in pursuing your passion. So that's my personal sort of perspective on your first part of the question. The second, on the depth and the breadth, right? Employers sometimes, just speaking as one, we're quite kiasu lah, we want both, right? Me personally, I think it's not an expectation I put on fresh graduates. Right. It is an expectation I will put on more senior, those who have had, 4 to 5 years experience, that they've taken certain steps within their careers, to then build both depth as well as breadth. I think for fresh graduates, you don't have to immediately think about, or be stressed out about, how do I quickly build, depth and breadth. Pick one, right? And I think what we've mentioned, as the fellow panelists have mentioned, I think it's really about those skills that we come back to, right? That are adaptable and applicable no matter what role you go into. It is something you will need to start thinking about as you progress in your career, and hopefully you guys join organizations that will also help you chart that ability to go deep or to go wide. Most organizations do have a competency framework or a progression pathway that will enable you to either do both or to pick one specifically. In my case, for example, my specialization is in economy building, right? But economy building itself, even though it's 1 out of 5 public service sectors, it's so broad, right? And even within that specialization, it's about building breadth across international economic relations, policy and regulations, operational industry development, for example. So I think that's not something to concern yourself, but definitely have it at the back of your mind.
Okay. Are there any other inputs from the panel?
Just one quick thought on the specialization. What Farida mentioned is correct. I think employers are pretty much kiasu, we want everything, but we know that that's not possible. Look at what other areas can help supplement your career. So take, for example, if let's say you're a teacher. Your core, the deep one is really about how you engage your students and transmit the curriculum over to them. But I think when you look at the T, those are the other things that can help prep your career further and really value add to your career. So these things will be in terms of, for example, how you interpret data. You may think that, what does data have to do with teaching students? But there's everything. Data is the new oil, essentially, moving forward. Not just data analytics, but even things like how you maneuver or you navigate through social media, because that's how you better understand your students. I mean, we may think that as teachers, okay, we know it all, or sometimes we tend to prescribe things to students, but understanding the landscape and the environment that they're in will definitely help you engage your students better. So that's just one example of the kind of surrounding skill sets that you probably will need moving forward. It's not just that one thing, but there are many other things. And I think increasingly also you see a lot of hyphenated careers. You know, I'm an actor / chef / something. People are, it's essentially, you know, it's a matter of, again, pursuing your passions and also pursuing what you are trained for as well. And that, again, opens up the different options available.
All right. Okay, maybe we can take one question from Slido. So maybe we can ask the first question. Do you know where you wanted to work during your final year of study? And if so, how is the job seeking process was like? Maybe you can open to the floor? Or open to the panel.
For me, I have no idea where I wanted to go. Yeah, no, because you know, communication is such a, is a huge, broad market that at that point, strangely after I graduated, I was thinking, oh, there's no way I want to be in media, because I'm somebody who's like I said, I love my private space, love my privacy. So I thought, how can I'm not so, not the sort of person who probably would enjoy the job, but I love communicating. So I didn't really know where I wanted to go until I realized that, I start looking at how I can, or rather, I can maximize my skill in a space where I feel I can thrive. So consulting was a place, because it's not a large, you don't speak to a large group of people all at once. You speak on a one-to-one with the CEOs or the VPs of an organization, and that's something I felt, well, that's not a bad place to start in, in maximizing the skills, or after graduating, because I thought that's a place where I'm comfortable. So I think if you really have no idea where you want to go, do a bit of self-reflection. Where can I thrive? Sometimes we are an extrovert, for instance. We're someone who loves talking to people, go to social gathering, and then we find a job that is a solo contributor work, like where we ourselves are talking with the four walls, and that would probably drain you after a while. So you want to look at what helps you to thrive, which environment helped me to thrive, and then try to find an inroads toward that.
All right.
So I guess here it's really about what we spoke about earlier, managing your expectations. Again, figuring out where to go in your final year of study may be a little bit late in the process. It's always good to start this process a whole lot earlier. And it's not about the second year or the first year, but even before that. Understanding the different industries, understanding your own personal strengths and abilities would definitely help you in figuring out what is it that you want to do, which path you want to chart, by the time you hit your tertiary studies. And even when you hit your tertiary studies and you're about to graduate, I think the idea of managing your expectations and being flexible is key. Many of us will not get into a job or career of choice or industry of choice. But again, we have to be flexible in knowing that there will be opportunities in future. There are also silver linings in whatever that we pursue at the moment. So look for these things. Just because you're in something which you may not want to be in, doesn't mean that it's all doom and gloom. Speak to your colleagues, to your peers, speak to those who have pursued this path before, because there will be opportunities for you to, get to where you want to be ultimately.
And I guess individuals may tend to fall into the problem of analysis paralysis, where they research so much to the point that they don't know what to do, right?
Yeah.
So like what Ms. Hasina said, maybe we can just go into it and then just try it out and see where we go from there.
It's like Netflix. How many of you would switch on your Netflix on the home screen? There's so many things you really are like, okay, what do I watch? To me, at dinner time, that's what happens.
Yeah.
I will flip, and then you realize that, okay,
Not
you know what?
watching.
Yeah. So just try something out. Yeah.
Correct.
And I remember when I was doing my thesis, and I hate writing. You know, sometimes you love talking, but it comes to writing, you really have to think really hard. And I'm not such a creative writer, so I remember my professor told me something that was so useful that I share with a lot of my team members, because in our work we do curriculum development, which involves a lot of writing. So sometimes you get really paralyzed with all the things that for that day writing. So I remember my professor used to tell me something that is so useful until today. He told me, Hasina, I always come and tell him, I don't know where to start, what to say, I don't know what to do. Then he would say, just write 2 words. Today. Tomorrow, write another 2 words. And then by the next day, you probably have a sentence. And when you have a sentence, you'll be surprised. You have another sentence. And I thought that's a great strategy, because that's what I did. And to write the entire thing was no longer, a challenge, because when you start small, it is not so much of a pressure that costs. That's how our brain function. We're so overwhelmed with so many things that we want to do, because we think about big tasks, big challenges, and we have big goals. So if you put them in smaller chunks, do one small thing one day, and then see your success indicator for that day, and then continue to do them on repetition. You'll be surprised. It become a habit that you want to do on an everyday basis.
Yeah. And I think that's a very good advice. And I think I'll take that also. All right, maybe we can open out to the floor again. Maybe if you have one more question from the floor. Maybe you can state your name and also where you're from.
Good afternoon. I am Amin. I am from Biomedical Engineering, year 3 from NUS. Okay. So this is my question. Diving into an industry with a small number or no Muslims, you are always seen or can be seen as an outcast or added consideration. So how do we actually manage this? Yes, thank you.
So diving into an industry that has a majority of non-Muslims.
Smaller number of
Muslims.
non-Muslims, yes.
Right. So you might feel as an outcast, is it?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So maybe we can open to the panel.
So a couple of, I guess, rough statistics. The fact that yourself, and actually most of you here, you are enrolled in a local IHL, that makes you in easily the top 5 to 10% of our community, right? When you go out there into the workforce, it is extremely competitive. And frankly speaking, no one cares what your race, religion, and otherwise is, right? How do you manage that? It is a very real thing, and anyone that tells you that it doesn't exist and that there are no biases and there is no discrimination either has privilege or has been living in a bubble. You have to ask yourself, right, what is your first and foremost identity? What is your moral compass? And for all of us, we're Muslims first and foremost, right? Not just in biomedical engineering, but in any sector that you go into, there will be, and it's about preparing yourself for that, there will be times that you may be forced through, or at least mentally you may have to think, do I have to trade off certain things, right? I'm not going to tell you what what the answer should be or what decisions you should make, because everyone has the prerogative to do that, and it really goes back to what is your relationship with your dean, right? The second is then also to note that you should find a support network, right? Not always, I'd say not always, okay, Melayu je, or like, okay, the moment you go into an organization, let me search out, the equivalent of a Muslim society or the Muslim gang. What I mean is find like-minded peers that won't judge you for you, that will be accepting of you, and forge your path together, right? A lot of times, certain biases and certain prejudices that currently exist is because we self-isolate ourselves within our groups. I think the more that we interact with others and that they understand certain feelings that we have, certain, I'd say, things that we grapple with. The fact that you coming in and you are saying that you are a minority and that you are a small group, coming into a big firm, someone of a majority race does not understand that, and it's not their fault. It is not your fault, it is not their fault. So I think having those like-minded peers and that support network is important, no matter what industry that you go into. Chances are, even if you go into banking, and even for me in certain aspects of public sector and public service, right? I have been in rooms where I'm the only minority, right? Two things that happen. Number one, your voice doesn't matter, or number two, your voice is the only thing that represents, right? And that's the added burden that you carry. But you have to carry that with pride, right? Okay. So that's my own personal perspective.
You, Mr. Johan, you want to add on anything?
Yeah, I'm just going to touch a little bit on what Farida mentioned about support networks, and that's critical, regardless of whether they are Malays or Muslims or non-Malay Muslims. I think finding that support network is critical. And I think here I can just share with you also that support networks can be found easy enough. So take, for example, Mendaki, we've got professional networks. And in many different industries, and STEM is one of them. And this is where we bring together Malay Muslim professionals from the particular industry to network and get to know each other. Again, for the idea of building your social capital and building your opportunities. So these are some of the things that you need to look out for, and I think we could probably take this offline later in terms of the networking sessions.
Yeah.
I also want to say that, like what Farida mentioned, these situations are real, and especially, at workplace. Sometimes I think as Muslims, it's really about how we respond to situation rather than anything else, because the situation is such, right? And so how do we respond to such situation tells a lot about us as a person. So I would encourage all of us, to go out and show any workplace that you're going to involve with what kind of Muslims we are. A lot of them may not even, I have people at workplace who don't even know some of the cultures that we go through. And they probably say, they don't even know this is how it's being done. I think it's an opportunity for us to educate, because we are ambassadors of our religion, ambassadors of our faith, and I think it's an opportunity, because now that we are so connected, the world is so connected. We are in a space where everyone are so globally connected. So to be cultural, we have to be culturally diverse in the way we think and the way we engage. So it's an opportunity for us. I mean, being minority is not something that I think it's something that we should be proud of, cherish, because it's an opportunity for us to show we are minority, but we have voice, and our voice matters, right? So.
All right. So maybe we have time for one more question. As all of you are quite experienced in your own careers, maybe we can ask, how do we seek a mentor as a fresh graduate? And I think that is a concern for a lot of us when we are entering an area of work that we are not so sure of. Yeah.
Maybe I'll just start for this one. Last year, Mendaki set up the Youth Mentoring Office, and the whole idea of the Youth Mentoring Office is to create a strong and active mentoring culture and ecosystem within the community. And we all know the values of mentoring, that, like I mentioned earlier, it's win-win. So we're always on the lookout for young people like yourselves to come in and volunteer as mentors. And when you volunteer as mentors to younger students, what you also get is that connection to others. And the connection to others is where, again, you find out a little bit more about your future pathways, the careers that you're entering. And here, this is where the connection will be in terms of the professional networks I spoke about earlier. And even, for example, if you attend some of our future-ready initiatives, then there would be senior or experienced professionals who can give a little bit more advice as to what you can expect and how you can maneuver some of the challenges that you're in at the moment. So if you're asking as fresh graduates or even soon to graduate next year or whatever it is, how do you seek mentors? I think the idea here is to come forward, be a mentor yourselves, and then have access to all these opportunities. Win-win.
Just to echo, I think even for, I'll speak on, I think mentors outside of work and mentors at your workplace is also equally important. So mentors outside of work, Joe has mentioned many networks out there. For Mendaki Club, we recently, actually no, it's our second year now, we launched Mara Mentoring, which is a specific mentoring program for undergraduates. Last year, our inaugural run, we focused on government, business, and tech. This year, we've decided to focus a little bit and just focus on business, but really different aspects of business, from management consulting to finance and banking, etc. So I think that, if you guys are in any of these sectors and you are looking for mentors in these areas, feel free to approach us, and all of our details are on our social media pages. The more critical one is, I think, start to seek out, as some of you who are graduating, start to seek out mentors in your workplaces. So again, I think this could be your immediate RO, your immediate reporting officer. That's surely one. But also, I think in the first 6 months or so, you would begin to understand the dynamics of your organizations. Are there other managers or directors that you could look to for advice? And then prove your worth. A lot of people have this misconception that, mentorship is actually a one-way street. I think it's also important for you to show the value that you could bring to that mentoring relationship, especially if the mentor that you're looking at is someone maybe fairly senior, fairly influential. Perhaps you are number 25 on his list of people that have approached him to become a mentor, right? And that's actually okay, but the question is then, how do you add value to that mentoring relationship? I've been very fortunate. I've had both mentors in my in the volunteer space as well as outside of work, but also mentors within the workplace that have really become sounding boards, and that's, I think, both are equally important, especially for fresh graduates.
Mr. Sina, you want to add on anything?
Yeah, I think it's like what Joe and Farida said. I mean, I would urge that for those who haven't got the opportunity as undergrads, now is the time to experience what being a mentee and being a mentor is about. So tap on Joe's and Farida's network, especially where they are giving, an extensive, support in that area. So that's one of the ways for the undergraduates to experience that mentorship.
All right. I was informed that we have some time for one more question. So let us just end with this question. Do you think that the CAP or GPA matters when it comes to degree, or does experience take precedence? And I'm sure a lot of people, or a lot of undergraduates are worried about their CAP and their GPA. So is that the be-all, end-all, or do employers take into account other things?
Okay, so whenever you go for interviews, and as a fresh graduate, sometimes what you have is essentially your grades or your last place of study. But what will definitely help you, because if, let's say, everybody else doesn't have experience, what can definitely stand out would be your other things. And this is where portfolio building is important. Portfolio building in terms of like what we talked about earlier, volunteerism. Portfolio building in terms of the online courses, the informal learning that you've taken on, and you listed in your resume, and all the other things that have come your way that can help strengthen your CV. So never discount, again, all these things that you come up as you progress in your studies, to put it into your CV. Portfolio building is very, very important. As you can never discount how difficult it is to get a job or to stand out amongst a sea of your peers or competitors. So your grades matter, but also what you do while getting your grades also matter, definitely, because it shows that you have acquired some of those skill sets while studying.
I would agree. I think the caveat here is also it really depends on the organizations, right?
Yeah.
I maybe speak for public service and public sector. There is a what we call hygiene factor, right? There is a minimum cap GPA class of qualifications that we are looking at, particularly for fresh graduates from Singapore. But then again, if I put two of the same CVs with the same class of when they graduate, say both are second upper, right? Then what I look beyond that is then, okay, what is their portfolio? And is that applicable? Does it show certain skill sets that would make this candidate more outstanding than the other, right? And I think that is equally as important. I want to go back to what I mentioned earlier on, which is it shouldn't just be your pathway to achieving or to getting that ideal job shouldn't just start when you are writing that CV, right?
Yeah.
It should have started when you were in year 2 or year 3 and going for those internships and building your portfolios, so that I would add that, say I've got 3 resumes, right? So all 3, say the same cap, same GPA, one has portfolio and then the other doesn't, but the third one actually happened to be an intern, that did something within my organization that we all remember. Hands down, there's no question, right, whom I would choose. So again, you have to take a longer term view of your very first job. I think that would be the most ideal to just better prepare yourself.
Ms. Hasina, do you want to add anything?
I think it's, I echo both the panelists, what they mentioned. I think, it's very subjective to organization when it comes to GPA and experiences. But having said that, having a good GPA is also a distinction of who you are, isn't it? It's your brand. So I think, and when you are in a space of learning, you want to do your very best in making sure that that's where, because this is your role right now in making sure that you're doing your best in scoring that, because later when you use that in an interview, you can always speak about how, so like I said, it's all about numbers, and Farida also mentioned about that, it's all about numbers game, but how you distinct yourself has a lot to do with who you are, what you have, and what are the things you have done.
All right. So before we end, maybe any of the panelists would like to say the final few words to our graduates or undergraduates who are looking for a job. Any words of motivation?
I think I would want to part by telling each and every one of you that in this it's a challenging journey. It's not a journey that, for some people, when they are earmarked, they got this opportunity in certain ways. Everything is already crafted for them. But still there are challenges. But for some of us who are going through this journey, trying to break through, trying to create that visibility, there's one thing I would like to tell you: don't lose faith. Because, when you lose faith, you lose your confidence. And when you lose your confidence, every interview that you go in, you will look vulnerable. And when we as hiring people, looking at those people who are vulnerable, we're not looking at the best of who you are. So I think the best thing I will tell all and each and every one of you to always have faith in the kind of value you bring. So don't go out there feeling like a job seeker. When you go out there feeling like a job seeker, it is so miserable because you think you're seeking something. Go out there and think that you're a problem solver. You're a contributor. So every time you meet someone, you know you have value to bring. So that's something that I think it's important for you to have it in your mind.
I'd say, to the undergrads and to the soon-to-be fresh grads or the nearly just recently graduated, this is a stressful period. Please take care of your mental health. And I think that, we have to all find ways to cope, whichever mechanisms work for you. I think always remember that aspiration is good, ambition is good, a little bit of drive is also good, but health always comes first, and always find ways to hang on to that. And maybe hopefully for you, faith is one way to do that. I just want to extend my own sort of personal shout out to anyone who we can always connect on LinkedIn if you need more advice. Mendaki Club is there. We're a network, we're a tribe basically of more than 200 plus volunteers, most of whom are professionals, as well as actually undergrads. So again, if you're looking for mentors or programs that you want to join or intern with us come March, feel free to reach out. So yeah, inshallah, everything will be good. Yeah.
So just to echo what Farida mentioned, mental health is very, very important. In COVID and when we're working from home, sometimes this takes a toll on your mental well-being. So always, keep a lookout on signals that may indicate otherwise on your mental well-being. So mental health, really, really critical. But for me, just 3 quick takeaways, and these are essentially summaries of what we talked about earlier. One is, I think it's really important for you to be plugged in. And plugged in is to plug into the developments that are happening in terms of your future careers, your industries, plugged into the schemes that are available as well. Second and third would be keep an open mind and be flexible. I think these may not be the perfect times for you to have a rigid or mindset as to what you want to do, and if there's nothing else, you'll just stick to it. But I think flexibility is key here in order for you to really find your purpose and passion in your careers. Yeah.
And with that, thank you so much to our 3 amazing speakers for sharing their experiences and the lessons that they've learned throughout their careers. And I'm sure the people at home and also the people here have learned a lot. So thank you so much once again. And for those of you who are still joining us later for our next event, do stick around until 12:45 where the breakout rooms will open. And with that, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.